Welcome back to MCReviews. Sorry about the typos in the last video if you noticed them. There isn't much I can do about them now though, unfortunately. Continuing forwards with our reviews of Monstercat 003 Momentum, we're going to be taking a look at what I imagine to be one of the album's best tracks, Insomnia, by Mr Fijiwiji. So, Fij is definitely one of my favourite Monstercat artists. He would definitely be in my top 5 if I had to choose, and this is for a multitude of reasons. One being that he has only ever made one song that I don't like. That song being Surrounded from his recent Dogma EP. Everything else, maybe excluding some of his very early dubstep, is great. 2 being the fact that he makes predominantly either chill or deep house style music, both being 2 of my favourite electronic genres. 3 being his incredibly inventive use of vocals and vocal chops. If you don't know what I mean, go listen to Aphasia or his remix of Under Your Cloud or any of his songs pretty much. They all have just amazing vocal chops, and the way he uses them are so unique and creative. I don't know how he does it, but it brings another element to his music that many artists just don't have. 4 being the twangy sound that he sometimes uses in his more house style music. If you don't know what I mean, go listen to the drop of something like Stop at Nothing or Let Me Out or Out on a Limb. That twangy sound is just so satisfying to listen to for me. There are plenty of other things I love about Fij, but they're the biggest ones that come to mind. And with the very first EP of his, the Keeping It Surreal EP, you can totally hear that Fij was really still finding his sound. This EP is pretty much the only time that Fij has ever made, quote unquote traditional dubstep, and some of the only times that he's ever made traditional music. Besides Gina, pretty much nothing on this EP sounds much like his current style, but that isn't necessarily a bad thing. So that brings us back to Insomnia. It was an EP release from the aforementioned Keeping It Surreal EP that got on to Monstercat 003. And while it's dubstep and resembles a very different sound to the quieter and more thoughtful tracks that Fij puts up today, there are still some traces that you can find in this track of his current sound. So Insomnia starts off with that sad kind of piano that Fij does quite often in his more down-tempo works. It's an emotional sound and isn't something that you hear a lot of in early Monstercat, especially in dubstep, so I give him props for that. Then you start to hear multiple layers of piano, as the melody seems to split from 1 to 2, with one going down on a lighter and more hopeful route, with the other going for a darker and lower sound. These 2 melodies are layered over each other and sound great together. You begin to hear the piano to get louder and more panicked in its sound almost, as a little note in the background begins to start sliding up and down in a kind of intense and unsettling way. And then suddenly the song almost glitches out with a very loud and stuttered vocal chop which is layered over the piano, and practically in the blink of an eye we're in the first drop. And oh my god, I never thought an early Monstercat dubstep track would have even hoped to be as complex and interesting as this one is. The drop constantly swaps between fast and slow, melodic bass, growly bass, little twangy, almost deep house notes, weird sounds, the closest comparison of which would be the sounds that velociraptors make in Jurassic Park 3, fast metallic little synth notes. You can occasionally hear that beautiful piano from the intro leak in, and the beat, oh my god, the beat. If I didn't know this was dubstep, I might have even thought it was breaks. This beat is how every dubstep beat should be. To say it follows an unlinear pattern would be an understatement. It feels like the beat is molded specifically for that moment in the song and nowhere else. When the drop is slower, the beat slows down and follows a more repetitive progression. When the drop speeds up, the beat becomes more complex, starting to sound like what I said, like breaks or DMB or drumstep, way more than it does dubstep. This beat is barely on a loop, it just plays when it needs to and isn't scared to branch out of its slow and repetitive genre. And that is how you do a dubstep beat right. More than right, that is how you do it perfectly, in my opinion. This drop doesn't overstay its welcome either. It lasts about 30 seconds, and each of those seconds are so jam-packed full of variation and inventive samples that are constantly changing and going in unexpected directions. It reminds me of a 7 Minutes Dead song in that respect. The drop is just so much better than I could ever have expected, and the way that every sound contrasts another faster, slower, lighter, darker, softer, harder, it's all just so cool and some of the most compositional talent that I've heard so far. Maybe Halo Nova's the only artist that could even parallel this amount of skill in pacing, sound design, and understanding of what sounds good where and how. I could go on for a million years about why I love this drop so much, but all that matters is that it is amazing. The drop comes to a sudden and quite unexpected end, the same way that it started, with it going straight into the midsection basically. The midsection is very dreamlike and ambient to start off with. It has a slow and relaxing style of smooth and swelling pad, which makes up the majority of the melodies of this section. They are really nice and harken over to his chill ambient sound that he goes for quite often today with his more recent releases. There is a deep bass thud, which serves as the closest thing that this section has to a beat. It's intense and adds a feeling of looming danger or anxiety to this section. I might compare this part to his track Beautiful from the Growing Up EP. A couple of very small melodic samples get added in, but nothing major up until there is a minor white noise build-up and a generic dubstep beat is added over everything else. It's kinda disappointing that this beat is as generic as it is, but it would be hard to make this beat particularly interesting in this situation, as there's nothing major to change it up with in the midsection like there was in the drop earlier, so I can forgive it. Along with that beat addition, little piano notes are sometimes thrown in there that have a really cool dream-like reverb on them that make them sound very fragmented and surreal. A little while later, a loud, quite white noise-like melodic bass is layered over everything and basically takes over the song. This sound kinda goes down in pitch and is accompanied by some more dream-like little synth melodies that climb in pitch alongside it and are on quite a nice and emotional little chord progression. But then suddenly basically everything just falls out of the song for a few seconds and pretty much all you can hear is that swelling dreamlike pad that was at the very start of this midsection. And just like with the first, with very little prompting, the second drop kinda just out of nowhere appears. And thank God, I was so worried that this song would just have 2 copy-pasted drops, but luckily it doesn't. The second drop is very similar to the first in almost every way, the only difference being a pretty large one. There is a vocal drop which is added over most of the drop. It's pretty decent and has a bit of that vocoder-y, haywire-y sound. It's interesting and it adds quite a lot to the drop, but in all honesty, I'm not in love with it. I like it, but I don't love it like I do most of the rest of the song. While this is way better than having the same drop twice, I think I still prefer the drop without it. I'm just happy it's there and it changes the song up, which is very important. The song wraps up in a very similar way to how it starts, with really nice piano, only difference being that it has the vocal drop from that second drop layered over it. I won't go too deep into, the over-analysis, but the fact that this song is called Insomnia is pretty cool to me, obviously referencing the condition known as sleep insomnia. And as this song goes from very calm to suddenly panicked and intense from the, intro to the drop or from the midsection to the drop, that to me seems similar to someone who might have insomnia or sleep insomnia, and who might be, asleep and calm, and then very suddenly, with no prompting, they can't breathe, then in a split second everything is hectic and panicked. So the name kind of parallels the way that the song sounds and is structured in a pretty cool way. So pretty much the only negatives I have with this song is that I don't love the second drop's vocal chop, and the second section of the midsection that has the generic dubstep beat is kinda unneeded and boring in my opinion, but I pretty much love everything else in the song. I still can't get over how much this song blew away my expectations. It's just so complex and unique. This song is dark, intense, uplifting, hopeful, calm, dreamlike, surreal, and heavy, all at the same time, and I love it. This song has given me even more respect for Mr Fijiwiji as an artist, as it shows another side of his music that I didn't know he could do so well, and for that and many other reasons, I'm going to be giving Insomnia by Mr Fijiwiji a 8 out of 10. A great song, and definitely one of the best tracks I've reviewed so far, and one of early Monstercat's greatest tracks. Even if this track came out today, I would still think it's great, and considering the context around it being released in 2011, with dubstep having evolved very little as a genre, and Fij being somewhat new to music and completely new to Monstercat, putting this track out like this is even more impressive. It's like nothing Fij will ever make again, which is sad, but it adds to how special this seemingly forgotten gem of a track is. Unfortunately, early on, Mr Fijiwiji didn't release too frequently up until album 11, when he started basically releasing on every album, but his songs are some of the songs I'm most excited about reviewing in the future. So yeah, that was Insomnia. I hope that you agree. Let me know down below how you feel about this one. Tomorrow you can be expected to see Pete's review of the amazing Shrooms by San Holo, and the day after that my review of Full Grizzly by Stephen Walking and Going Quantum. But until then, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.